My dear brothers and sisters, H.W. Longfellow is an American poet. He wrote a very beautiful poem. The lives of great men remind us that we can make our lives sublime. The life of great men remind us that we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, shall see. The lives of all great men remind us that we can make our lives sublime. St. Augustine was a great man. St. Augustine of Hippo. His life of dedication to God and his marvelous writings defending the faith of the church have inspired thousands and thousands of people to emulate him, to imitate him. And it did help, his life did help so many people to turn back from the evil ways and turn towards God. His was a very fruitful life that he led. He died in the year AD 430 at the age of 76, an old man in those days. But it was a very, very fruitful life that he led. But the starting days of St. Augustine's life, the first 33 years in his life, was a life of viciousness, a life of failure. It was a life that did not produce good fruits. First 33 years. This particular parable that we have, the 4 kinds of grounds wherein the seeds fell, is reflected in the heart and the mind of St. Augustine. In the first place, his heart was like that of the pathway ground wherein the seeds fell and nothing grew from it. His father's name was Patricius or Patrick. He was a pagan. He was working in the Roman municipality as a tax collector. And then he was, being a pagan, he was married to St. Monica, who was a Christian by birth and baptism. But this man was a vicious man. He had no place for God. So the kind of a ground that he prepared in the heart of St. Augustine was not a healthy one. Augustine's father left a negative impression in the heart and the mind of St. Augustine. And therefore, whatever good his mother tried to sow in his heart never bore fruit. It was like the pathway ground where the seeds were sown and nothing good came out of it. In the second place, we have the classmates of St. Augustine. He was sent to a very good school in Carthage. He's from North Africa, the present-day Algeria. That's where St. Augustine was from. So he was sent to Carthage. In those days, Carthage was a rival city to Rome. Such a huge city it was. So he was sent over there to study. And he had companions who were vicious, and they were all, most of them pagans. We are talking about the 4th century. They were all pagans, and they led a life that was given to all kinds of dissipation and sexual immoralities. And St. Augustine went and joined them, and he wanted to rival his classmates in viciousness. He took pride about it. He wanted to be worse than what the other classmates were. And therefore, even his classmates were not able to give him a good heart wherein the seeds of God could grow. So that was kind of a rocky ground which was shallow, and nothing good came from his schoolmates also. In the third place, we have the Augustine's heart. They were the philosophers. St. Augustine graduated, and then he studied rhetoric, that is philosophy, and the kind of philosophers that he admired and that he followed and that he loved. were no good in guiding him towards the path of God. They were also vicious, and it was like that of a thorny ground his hearts were. They did not help him to cultivate a good heart that could produce good fruits in his life. And therefore, even the philosophers that he followed in those days, initial days, were not helpful in his life. So therefore, the three grounds in the heart and the mind of St. Augustine were infertile. And the seeds that his mother tried to sow in his heart were all fruitless. And then we come to the fourth and the fertile ground, which were prepared in the heart and the mind of St. Augustine by his mother, St. Monica, and by Bishop St. Ambrose. We know the story about his mother, very, very religious. Then he recuperated, and then he became all right. So therefore they postponed his baptism. But his mother saw that Augustine was going in the wrong way. She pursued him. And then later on, when Augustine went to Milan, St. Augustine was from Algeria, the northern African country. But then when he went to Milan, he took up a job, and therein his mother joined him over there. And then he used to go for Sunday Mass and listen to the preaching of great St. Ambrose. He was the Bishop of Milan. And every Sunday he used to go and watch the preaching, listen to the preaching of St. Ambrose. And it is there that he got converted. And therefore St. Monica, his mother, and St. Ambrose, the Bishop of Milan, prepared a receptive heart, a fertile heart in the heart of Augustine, after which the seeds of the gospel were sown into his heart, and that brought forth beautiful fruits in his life. Later on, he came back to his own country, became a bishop, and was a staunch believer in God, defender of God, and lover of God. And although 1,500 years are passed after his coming into this world and his death, he has been a great example for so many forlorn and shipwrecked brothers on this solemn way of life. That was the fruitful life of St. Augustine. In today's gospel, we heard about the parable of the sower and the seed. The three grounds did not produce any fruit. And that may be reflected even in our hearts also. The ground reflects or represents our disposition towards God's word. The first is, we have the pathway ground where the seeds were sown and it did not produce any fruit. That refers to a shut mind. We do not like to think about certain things. We shut our mind out of laziness sometimes. We don't like to think. Dr. Samuel Johnson, the one who wrote the first dictionary, great dictionary, he said, a man may go to any length in avoiding to think. And that is true, it's quite true in our lives. We don't like to think, it is laborious. We don't like to think and think things through. Slumber is sweet. Toil is hard for us. And therefore, kind of a laziness sets into us and we don't like to think. That is a kind of a shut mind. We can also have a kind of a shut mind because of fearfulness. If I come to know about certain truths when I read the gospel, and the gospel tells me to change my life, maybe from alcoholism, or maybe from compulsive lying, or maybe from some kind of an anger that we have. If the gospel challenges us, we are afraid where we have to give up all these things. And therefore, this fear factor may make our mind shut. And we don't like to listen and don't like to meditate about all these things. So we shut our mind. That is the pathway on which the seeds are fallen and it doesn't produce. Even in our lives, sometimes it doesn't produce anything good because we have shut our mind. The second kind of ground that we have is the rocky ground. That speaks about the shallowness of life. Our faith is very shallow. We have not made an effort to deepen our faith. The only way to deepen our faith is to come constantly in touch with the gospel, especially with the sermons, with the teaching of the church. That's the way we need to, the teaching of the church will percolate into our lives. We need to think about it and make our lives very, very strong. Put our roots into the gospel. Lead a very strong Christian life. Benedictines is one of the congregations that we have, very ancient congregation that was founded in the 5th century by Saint Benedict. It's an order that is dedicated to the monks who dedicate their life for prayer and for work together. Ora et labora it is called. That is their motto, ora et labora. Ora means prayer, labora means labor or work. So whenever a novice comes to join this Benedictine order, they will give him a small cell. And in the cell there will be a table and a chair for him. When he comes from outside to join this particular order, his old clothes that he has come from the world is taken and folded and kept in the room on the table. For 1 year his clothes will be over there. He has to practice all the rigorous exercises that are meant for the Benedictine monks. So the clothes are kept over there so that he has to practice these things, and any time of the year, within 1 year, if he finds that he is not fit for this particular life, he can take his clothes, wear it and go away. So 1 year it will be lying over there. Only when he becomes convinced in his faith, they take away the clothes and give him the order's habit to him. That is the practice among the Benedictines, to say that our faith needs to be strong. Our faith needs to be strong, and the roots have to be gone inside the ground, and therefore our faith has to be strong, and then the shallowness of our faith should be avoided in life. We have to get little more firm in our faith. Otherwise, we will not be bearing fruit like the seeds that were sown on the rocky grounds. Coming to the third one. The third ground is the thorny ground. Thorny ground refers to the busyness of our life. We have so many things in our days, chores. We have got so many things to do in our lives. And often what happens is the casualty is God and time for God. We have time for all other things except for God. And our busyness in life chokes out Christ in life. There's a very beautiful incident in the book of Kings, 1 Kings chapter 20, verses 38 and 40. There is a jailer who is responsible to keep the inmates. The command was given to him that if one of the prisoners escapes, he has to forfeit his life. But one day what happened is, one of the prisoners escapes from there. The king comes over there, then he asks him, how did the prisoner escape from here? Then he says, your lordship, your servant was busy here and there, and the prisoner escaped. He says, your servant, that is the jailer says, referring to him, your servant was busy here and there, and the prisoner escaped. And then he was condemned awfully. What was he busy with? His work was to safeguard the prisoners inside the jail. He did not have any other work. That was his primary job. What was he busy with? He was busy here and there, but he let off the prisoner to escape, and therefore he was condemned. Sometimes it happens. The busyness of our lives. We are busy with so many things, but the most important things in our life, God, or the obligation that we are responsible to God, these are the things that we neglect. So we need to ask, what are we busy with? And these are the seeds that are sown on the thorny grounds. Coming to the fourth one, the fertile ground. The fertile ground refers to a proper response that we give to God and His words. God has given us so many talents. What are we doing with those talents? Do we enjoy slumber more than our labor in life? You must have heard about the lotus eaters. The lotus eaters. When they went to that island and ate that lotus plant, they became little dizzy and sleepy. And they said, henceforth there's no need for us to fight and labor. Why should we fight against evil? This slumber is so sweet for us. Let us slumber and let us live in this dreamland. We should ask ourselves, are we carrying on the responsibility that God has given us? Do the examples of the great saints inspire us to make even our lives sublime? St. Augustine was the one who asked like that, when he and she can go to heaven, why can't I go? When he and she can storm heaven, why can't I go? That is a question that he asked. When the other people can do, why can't I do? And that made him to change his life. His heart was barren, but then it became fruitful when he asked this question. When somebody else can do, why can't you do? Why can't you do? You can also do. God has given those gifts to you. Change your heart, make it fertile, that the seeds that the Lord sows into your hearts may bear fruit, 100-fold, 60-fold, and 30-fold. By God's grace, amen.